What is up, everybody? Welcome into Ford Field here in Detroit, where the Buffalo Bills just improved to 11-3 with a 48-42 defeat of the Detroit Lions, ending their 11-game win streak. Ryan Talbot, this was an absolute offensive fireworks show. Over 1,000 yards of total offense in this game. The Bills get their run game going. Josh Allen probably wraps up the MVP in this game, and the Bills silence all doubts for 1 week. And I got a text message a few minutes ago. It looks like the Bills are now the betting favorite to win the Super Bowl. So much changes week to week in the NFL. I'm going to check that out as we're talking here. But welcome into a post-game edition of Shout, a pretty big one, Ryan Talbot.
Yeah, huge win for the Bills. And, going into this game, I predicted the Bills to lose. You go to the inactive list, it's not two defensive members of the secondary out, it's three. They're missing both safeties. They're missing Rasul Douglas. And I know when you look at the final stat line, you look at how many yards Jared Goff put up, how many points the Lions put up in that game. The defense was good enough. They made some stops early in the second half. And that led to Josh Allen and this offense just extending their lead. So, Matt, I said if the Bills lost this game, I was going to eat a little crow. I've got one right here. I'm going to take a little bite of the crow here.
Swallow it right now. All the way down. Have you ever eaten paper before? You're a teacher. You've probably eaten paper before. I wouldn't be surprised.
It's gone.
That's impressive. You ate some crow. Listen, we both talked about this, though. Like, that's a big piece of this conversation is, like, we both picked the Lions to win. I picked a 33-30 game. I thought it was going to be close. I thought it was going to be back and forth, which it ended up being. But what the Bills did differently this week is they never allowed the Lions to play from the lead. This is the best offense, this Lions defense, this banged-up Lions defense that got even more banged up throughout the course of this game has gone against. They haven't allowed a 300-yard passer in 9 straight games, Ryan. This has been a dominant performance as they've missed a bunch of players on their defense. And Josh Allen and company came into this game and they set the tone with their offensive line up front. Guys made catches. Had big productive days. We're going to get into Ty Johnson a little bit later today. I talked to him and a bunch of people in the post-game press conference room. But I got to do a little business here, Ryan Talbot. We're brought to you by Tops Friendly Markets, as always. And right now, every Sunday during football season, is Slider Sunday. And if you're looking to elevate your food game during football season, Tops has teamed up with King's Hawaiian to bring you delicious inspiration for terrific sliders from around the country. For recipe ideas and more, visit topsmarkets.com/slider Sunday. And don't forget, let Tops do the cooking and you'll be the MVP. Visit shop.topsmarkets.com and elevate your food game with great selection of custom cakes, desserts, pizza, sandwiches, fresh fruit, cheese trays, fried chicken, and so much more. I actually had some fried chicken at a Christmas party on Saturday, Ryan. It was absolutely banging. It's a big old, chicken breast. The white meat was delicious. Get over onto Tops. Hook yourself up. All right, Ryan. So the Bills 11-3. Before we get into too much, and I see Dylan in the comments here saying Matt lit a fire under Ed Oliver this week. I don't know how much I did or any member of the media did, but I think what actually did is, like, when you have to answer questions about not meeting the standard that's been set, I think that changes the math for guys in a week where a lot of things were at play. Last week, the Bills had just wrapped up the AFC East with the win over the San Francisco 49ers. They were kind of coming down from that high. They had to go on the road against a starving, hungry Los Angeles Rams team that played like it on both sides of the ball. And you saw a little bit of a drop-off in terms of play from the defensive line. And I thought they came out, they set the tone early today. I mean, from the first play, Ed Oliver looked like he was playing possessed. He ends up with 3 quarterback hits, as did Greg Rousseau. I thought it was a defensive line game across the board. All of them had a big play at some point in this game. And I think, getting DeJuan Smoot back into the mix, pretty big time.
Yeah, huge performance by the defensive line, but Ed Oliver obviously led the way. 10 quarterback hurries, Matt. 10. Unbelievable performance. Career high today against Detroit. Really took advantage of the matchup against Graham Glasgow. I believe 7 of the pressures came against him in that win. So he opened up things, though. You're right. When he caved the pocket, it pushed linemen down. It allowed guys to come off the edge. You had Rousseau getting a sack, Von Miller getting in on it. You saw AJ Epinesa get called or be the recipient of a holding call where he was close to the quarterback. Javon Solomon flew in, almost had a sack late in the game, which, bad miss on his part. He's a rookie, but a lot of guys on that D-line showed up 1 week after having zero impact in that matchup against the Rams.
Yeah, so Ed Oliver comes out, has himself a really big game. It's kind of what we talked about on the preview episode and throughout the week is like if he can kind of find his game right now, along with Daquan Jones, DeJuan Smoot having a big impact today, Epinesa and Greg Rousseau. That's one area of the defense. You mentioned the injury woes that's healthy right now, and they have to play like that. Now they're going to get 3 games over the next couple of weeks, and I think we could maybe take a pause here and talk about the big picture AFC stuff here for a minute, because I think it's really important. There's a lot happening in the conference that's going to make the next 3 weeks very exciting. First of all, the Pittsburgh Steelers lose today. The Baltimore Ravens are hot on their trail. I think that if you want to sell me that the Baltimore Ravens were going to win that division, finish as the 3 or the 4 seed in the AFC, I don't think that that's crazy at all. Now, maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers get healthy for next week. We'll see how that ends up playing out. The 1 seed is in play, Ryan. Patrick Mahomes is week to week with the injury that he suffered today, the ankle injury that he suffered. So now if Carson Wentz has to lead that team for the next couple of weeks and they drop a couple games, the Bills are able to move into that 1 seed, get the bye, get healthy. They're going to have 3 straight games here against AFC East teams where you like to think that they run through those opponents and get to 14 wins, but man, what a setup it is right now for the Buffalo Bills down the stretch of this season.
Yeah, things are setting up nicely for them. Obviously, they have to take care of their own business, but that high ankle sprain by Patrick Mahomes is something really to monitor. And I know that Andy Reid said Mahomes wanted to go back into this game. We're going to, we'll closely monitor it. We'll see if he's going to have to miss any time. They have 2 games in a very short window, Matt, and 2 games against playoff teams. You have a game against the Houston Texans this upcoming week, and I know the Texans aren't playing their best ball. It took a full 4 quarters for them to pull away from the Miami Dolphins. And then you have Pittsburgh, though, on Christmas Day, who, like you said, they're going to be fighting for that division and keeping the lead in the division in that game, and you know how good the defense is. If those 2 teams go against Carson Wentz, I like both of those teams' odds. And it's not to say the Chiefs can't win. Andy Reid's a phenomenal play caller, as we all know. That defense has stepped up time and time again over the course of Mahomes' time in KC in games where he hasn't maybe had his best games or whatever the reason. So it's no guaranteed losses or anything like that. But the high ankle sprain in this short window of time where they have 2 games against really good teams, not to mention a season finale against the Denver Broncos team that is going to want to end the regular season on a high note, the way they're playing in the midst of the playoff race, likely going to win a wild card spot in the AFC. That's a tough stretch for KC.
Josh Allen, we're going to talk about his game in a second here, but Jared Goff, it's funny. Had they found a way to come back and win this game, maybe he puts himself in the MVP conversation because he was absolutely electric today for most of the game. The only bad play for the Lions offense that kind of changed the game a little bit at one point was the fumble. Goff threw a pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and it was Christian Benford that came in and knocked that out. Matt Milano recovers the fumble. Huge moment in the game. But look at these numbers. I mean, 38 of his 59 passes for 495 yards and 5 touchdowns against the Bills. It was an absolutely tremendous performance by Jared Goff. But even with those gaudy numbers, those gaudy passing numbers, listen, they were playing from behind. The Bills went into a very soft defense. I think a lot of that probably plays into it. And the Bills did what they had to do. They forced the Lions into their style of game, which is playing from ahead, allowing the Bills to kind of stay 2-dimensional on offense, keep leaning into that run game. And funny enough, Ryan, it was the special teams gaffe by Dan Campbell that ended up really being a difference-making decision. Now, at the time I tweeted, what a boneheaded or whatever I said about it, Dan Campbell decision to kick that ball, knowing the offense that you had. But the more and more I thought about it, it's like, I think he thought we kick the ball back to Josh Allen. He comes down, bleeds 5 minutes off the clock or whatever it is, and ends up with another scoring drive. It's going to make it challenging to come back. So I think what he was trying to do was flip the game. I haven't heard from him. I haven't seen any tweets about it, but I get it. And they're an aggressive team. For better or worse, they're going to go out on their sword with the way that they are. What a heady play by Matt Collins, who joked after the game that he didn't want to go all the way back for a touchdown because he didn't want to take away that Micah Hyde highlight.
Yeah, that was a great play. Batting it up in the air to himself. Luckily, no one else was around. Being able to haul that in and get it all the way down to about the 4-yard line. Heads up play by him. A game, changing play because the Lions were on the heels of the Bills at that point, and it was a 2-minute and 2-second drive by the Lions to score a touchdown. Really took essentially no time off the clock. And for him to do that and get the Bills all the way down to the 4-yard line, in which they scored in the very next play, that took a lot of the wind out of the sails of the Lions. And I know, they made it close. They made it interesting. You mentioned Goff's passing stats. A lot of it was I don't want to call it garbage time, but against soft defenses. And one pass he made, Matt, it shows you how football is a game of inches. I believe it was Terrell Bernard that got his hand on the ball, the 66-yard touchdown pass that he had to Amon-Ra St. Brown, 3rd and 17. I believe it was Bernard and Milano back there. They both jump up for the ball. I think Bernard gets his hand on it, but it still goes right into the arms of St. Brown for that touchdown. That, threading the needle, it just goes to show you, though, slightly lower, that's either batted down or picked off. And then who knows what this game looks like, and who knows what the game looks like if the Bills go for the quarterback run on 3rd and 1 in the first half rather than try to get a little bit too cute down there. The Bills probably could have put this away a little bit sooner, but at the end of the day, the offense thrived. The defense made enough plays. And like you said, special teams, big play by Mac Hollins and a huge play by Taron Johnson in a big scrum or a big pile to come up with that last onside kick recovery.
Yeah, and also like under the radar, I think early on in this game, Brandon Codrington had a really important punt return that could have been down there in the 5-yard line and ended up going back. I think he got it out to about the 20-yard line, allowed the Bills to get into a better territory to start their drive. Little things like that. I think Codrington has been a really good addition. We've talked about him multiple times. All right, let's get into Josh Allen. This was such a tremendous performance, stuck in a career of tremendous performances, right? Like these almost at this stage don't even stand out as sensational as they truly are. I thought today he was absolutely locked on, laser focused, the way that he was operating. Ryan, Detroit has an open air press box, as I know that you remember, and this place in the first quarter was as loud as I've ever heard a football stadium. The dome keeps the noise in. Operating offensively was so challenging, and it was almost like Josh Allen was seamless. Like it was quiet. You could hear a pin drop the way that he was operating the offense, sending people in motion. There was a play early on a 3rd down where I thought it was so critical of him to take the timeout. Sometimes you want to rush to the line of scrimmage, get it off. A lot of chaos happening, but he didn't do that. He waited. He patiently waited, took the timeout, got the play that they wanted, ended up getting the first down, went on to score on that drive. There's another play that I wanted to call out. On the 4th and was it 4th and 2 or 4th and 4 where they went for it? Whatever it ended up being.
Yeah, 4th and 4 or 4th and 6, I was thinking with the pass.
It was a little longer, right?
Yeah.
So on the play, time was running down. It was under 10 seconds. He was sending somebody in motion. And at the time, I thought they were going to let the play clock run down, call a timeout, or even take the delay of game and punt the ball. What he did on the play was, it was like go back and watch the replay. Maybe I'm completely off and seeing things. It was very loud in here and crazy. It looked like he kind of did like a little bit of he was in shotgun, a little bit of a shoulder shrug, like, oh man, I'm going to stop. And then he kind of reset, got his hands back up, snapped it at 1 second. It caught the Detroit Lions defense off guard. There goes Ty Johnson, who we're going to talk about in a minute. But Josh Allen today was so spectacular. 10 touchdowns in 2 games. MVP race is over in my eyes. And, he's gone on again and again to elevate this crop of weapons who now I see these tweets on social media, and I love them because I do agree with them. People in the market, people nationally about, is this the greatest arsenal of weapons that Josh Allen has ever played with? And I'm sitting here saying, like, can we get in a time machine and go back to August and July when people were talking about this being the worst team that's ever been assembled around Josh Allen? And now he's sitting here as the MVP on December 15th, winning a game on the road against the previously only 1 loss back in September, Detroit Lions, who everybody thought was going to the Super Bowl. This was an absolutely signature performance by Josh Allen.
Unbelievable performance by Josh Allen. And I will say this, there are 1 or 2 passes that were slightly off, including that 4th down throw where Ty Johnson kind of made an outstanding grab, kind of caught it by the end of the football, hauled it in. late in the game where it was a design quarterback run, or at least it looked that way, and he saw that Dawson Knox was wide open. He threw it to him, overthrew that one a little bit, and Knox came down and made a big play. So his pass catchers did bail him out once or twice, but overall, he was phenomenal. I mean, an A-plus effort. Was just picking apart that Lions defense with his arm, with his legs, was making the right call over and over again. And, it's funny, going into the game, I thought one player that I thought could have a huge game would be Amari Cooper, really good against man. That's a man defense that the Lions play a lot. No targets in this game, and yet the Bills found ways to get other players involved. Ty Johnson being the biggest biggest winner of them all in terms of coming out of the backfield and hauling in 5 grabs for over 100 yards. Keon Coleman deep down the field. You name it, he was just finding those guys, and that's what an MVP does. He elevates the play of everyone around him, and that's what Allen did against this great Lions team. 4 total touchdowns, over 400 yards of offense, 0 turnovers being the key stat, obviously. Allen was unbelievable, and like you said, going into this final stretch, he's really separated from the pack. Barkley, I know the Eagles won today, but I believe he only had about 61 yards rushing in the matchup, was held in check. Allen, these last few weeks, even in that loss against the Rams, has looked like the best player in football by far.
Thank you for tuning in here on Sunday night. The Bills proved to 11-3. Question in the chat: who led the Bills in receptions? It went 6 for Khalil Shakir, only for 39 yards. Had that little pitch touchdown there in the second half. Then it was Ty Johnson at 5 catches, Dalton Kincaid at 4 catches, and then Knox and Ray Davis with 2 catches apiece. Amari Cooper, crazy as it sounds, no targets in this game. It felt like this was the game that the Bills traded for him. And he was out there. He played some snaps. I don't have the full snap count in front of me. We'll get a look at it tomorrow. He didn't play a ton in the second half. It was, I don't know if there was something banged up or if they just felt like they had better matchups or they wanted to see how it went. But Amari Cooper with a big 0 in the stat column, and it was still the best offensive performance for this Buffalo Bills team, our Bills offense this season.
Yeah, unbelievable performance. I mean, you can nitpick a few things that this team did on both sides of the ball if you really wanted to, but they came in. They were very ready for this game coming off of the loss. They knew what the atmosphere was going to look like, and the offense was just firing all cylinders. And like I said, the defense wasn't great. They're down 3 starters. They lost Milano to a groin injury. Dorian Williams came back in very late in the game, but he was injured early on too. You talk about Spencer Brown going down late. They were pretty banged up, and they just found a way to win. And a lot of comments in here from some Lions fans about Goff clearly outplaying Josh Allen. Get out of here. That's ridiculous. A lot of it was garbage time yards, or not garbage time, but against the soft defense where the Bills were allowing a lot of the yards and hoping time would come off the clock. Goff was excellent. Do not get me wrong, but in no way, shape, or form did he outplay Josh Allen today.
Yeah, it was 2 great players. I thought, Goff was sacked 3 times. I think there was a couple times on a offense that's predicated on getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands. A couple times he held it too long. And I think maybe on tape, you watched that LA game last week and you're not counting on the Bills landing, but to your earlier point on Ed Oliver and across the board on this defensive line, they were getting after Goff. There was quarterback hits in this game. As a matter of fact, let me bring up the defensive stats here. Quarterback hits in this game for the Bills: 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for the Bills, 1, 2, 3 for the Detroit Lions. And honestly, I'm not really interested in hearing the excuses about guys being out. This Lions defense has shut down offenses for the past 2 months. Problem is they haven't played any really good offenses. And when you don't play good offenses, this is what ends up happening. And there's problems with the Bills defense. That's continued to be a storyline. But today it was Josh Allen came out and was inevitable, like he has been in so many moments over the course of his career, set the stage for the game and forced the Lions to turn Jared Goff into pass at all costs player, which I don't think that they want to be offensively. Threw the ball 59 times. You only ended up with 13 carries for Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery totaling 35 yards. Detroit Lions aren't winning many games when that's the way that it goes.
Yeah, you make them one-dimensional and you take away 2 playmakers like that, it usually bodes well for the other team. And, I know both of the guys, especially Gibbs, made some great plays in the passing game for the team, but it really allowed the Bills to kind of get after Goff and get after that team. And when you forced 2 3 and outs early, you forced another one in the second half. Those are lost possessions for the Lions where they are trying to climb back into the game, especially that second half's first possession for the Lions. So big time plays when the defense needed it. Some really good play calls from Bobby Babich and Josh Allen. I liked early in the game sending Christian Benford on a blitz going in untouched. I liked some of the way that on the third down play late, the Bills went to a different defense than the Lions were expecting. It threw them off guard. It led to an incomplete pass and pressure in Goff's face. It was enough on a day where, just like the Lions, the Bills defense was very banged up too. They just made enough plays to win it.
Few Lions fans are just commenting through it right now. And I get it. Like, when you win 11 in a row and this is like a measuring stick game, and we know what the conversation is going to be nationally tomorrow. But there's a stat that Aaron Schatz from the inventor of the DVOA stat, put out a stat during the game. The Lions have 3 below average games on defense this year by DVOA after applying opponent adjustments. Let's assume today will be the 4th. It ended up being that. And here are the weeks. Week 4, Week 13, Week 14, and Week 15. So the last 3 weeks are arguably the Detroit Lions' worst 3 defensive performances of the season. Oh, you banned Eric? You gave him the big ban button?
He
was about to get it in the
pretty
chat.
bad language going flying there. Had
come
to do
on.
it.
Womp womp, Ray. That's tough.
I
I wanted to let him go because I get it. Like, these are 2 awesome fan bases. This was an awesome game. I want to see the rematch if it does end up happening in the Super Bowl. That's going to be, blockbuster. I heard somebody say today, I can't remember who I was talking to. Oh yeah, I'm sure the Bills want, or the NFL wants a Bills-Lions Super Bowl. Like, meaning like it's like not super huge markets. I think the NFL is praying for the Bills and the Lions. Number one, you get the Bills, you get Josh Allen, you get Bills Mafia in there. That is a big one. The fact that you could have a matchup where the winner is the first time in the franchise's history to win a Super Bowl. There's so many storylines that could go into a Lions-Bills Super Bowl. And I got to say, man, like, I know Bills fans across Western New York and around the world hate putting the cart before the horse, get all, anxiety ridden when you start talking about, printing tickets to a Super Bowl. But this feels like a different season. Like, it feels like a different team offensively and defensively. They got to stay healthy. Josh Allen walking into the x-ray room after the game today, wanted to get something checked out, said he felt funny during the game, came out, said it's all clear, everything's good. But there's one injury away to Josh Allen from the season being a completely different situation. So they look really good right now. They're coming off of a huge road win. One of the premier wins of the Sean McDermott era in the regular season. This was a Detroit Lions team, an offense that was going to give them the business. And I think game plan wise, Joe Brady calling the game, Josh Allen's performances, a couple of big plays on the defense. Cole Bishop got beat pretty bad on the one. I think it was just Jameson Williams play down here before he left the game with cramps. I think he got his hand in there at the last second and ripped that thing out. I got to go back and watch the replay. If he did, even despite getting beat, that's a big time play. You'll like to see it because somebody made the point. I think it was on Twitter or Blue Sky. Nico Collins, his big touchdown earlier in the season was Cole Bishop was in the game in that one.
Yeah, players stepped up, and Sean McDermott gave a lot of praise to Cole Bishop post game about how the preparation, he's really ramped that up over the rookie year in terms of being ready to play. Kareem Jackson having to come in, longtime vet having to come in and play some snaps once Bishop exited with the cramping. Guys that you weren't expecting necessarily to factor into this game a week ago did. And little small plays here and there, sure. But it all factors in. And going back to your original talking point, the league would be giddy if it was Bills and Lions, 2 teams trying to win the Super Bowl for the first time. You talk about, I don't know if the league would ever admit this, and I'm sure the ratings will be fine no matter who plays. I think there is a little bit of Kansas City Chiefs fatigue in terms of, if they get into that game again, wouldn't you get sick of watching them? The NFL Super Bowl is going to be a ratings monster no matter who is in. But if you get a different AFC team in, especially if it's a team like the Bills, and you get a great team like the Lions in from the NFC, that would be a ratings blockbuster.
Speaking of ratings blockbuster, man, you guys are filling the live show tonight. Over 3,000 people across all platforms. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're watching over on YouTube. Let's get to Ty Johnson, dive into his performance tonight, because he, to me, in so many ways, set the tone for this offensive performance. He's so versatile, and it's amazing to see the trust that Joe Brady has in him, putting him out there in big time moments early in this game. And I think a lot of fans probably at home are like, what's going on here? Get James Cook into the game. Feed James Cook. Let James cook. But there is a skill set in Ty Johnson's game where he's so dynamic as a pass catcher. If you would have told me middle of last season or when they acquired Ty Johnson that eventually you're going to feel better about Ty Johnson as a pass catcher than you would about James Cook, which in a lot of ways they drafted him. And that's not even a shot at James Cook. It's how good Ty Johnson is coming in here, having a 100-yard performance as a receiver today. You can't say enough good things about what Ty Johnson did to spark this Bills offense.
No, unbelievable performance. And, kudos to Joe Brady. He clearly saw something on film where he thought they could exploit that matchup and get him out there running routes. And Johnson was sure-handed, hauling in all 5 of the targets that came his way. Like I said, that 4th down catch wasn't the perfect ball, and he was still able to adapt and haul that in. Made some other key grabs for this Bills team. Has really stepped up over the last 2 weeks. You remember the screen pass that went to
I
the
gotta
house?
stop you for a second. Come back in a second. But Ray is as determined as anybody. I love this determination. Do not block him. He is back under a different YouTube handle. Ray Plays Games.
That's him. No, it was the other guy had a block. The other guy was spitting some F-bombs and everything else in there. Yeah.
Who was the other guy? What was his handle? Eric Wilkinson.
Yes.
Eric Wilkinson. We wanted you in here. We wanted to have you have the conversation. All right. Way to go, Ray. Way to keep it PG-13 and not go all the way to R. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's just, he really stepped up and showed his worth as a pass catcher for the Bills today. He did it last week with the screen passes going for the touchdown, or one for a touchdown, one for another big gain. The Bills have a lot of trust in him, and very lucky to be able to sign him last year when they did. He was with the Jets, suffers the pec injury off site. The Jets tell him to get surgery. They release him, so the Bills bring him in the final preseason game, and he did enough in that performance for the Bills to sign him to the practice squad. And then we know the rest of the story. He gets elevated, gets signed, and he hasn't looked back since. He is perfect for the culture here, perfect locker room guy. Always going to be happy when James Cook has his moments, who went off in his own right, when Ray Davis has those moments, which he's had in his rookie year. But with his number being called today, he stepped up and played a huge role in Buffalo's victory.
Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. If you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate you hanging out with us late on this Sunday. The Bills 48-42 over the Lions, moving to 11-3, now 1 game back, or 2 games back, I should say, of the Kansas City Chiefs, who win again this week. Man, could the Cleveland Browns have just laid more of an egg than they did today? I mean, just turning the ball over and over again. The first possession of the game, they fumble the punt, give the Chiefs great field possession after they have to punt. Just an unbelievable string of luck in terms of opponents, circumstances of games for the Chiefs. It's, obviously might have run out depending on what the injury is here for Patrick Mahomes. Let's talk about Dalton Kincaid. He returns in this game, 7 targets, ends up with 4 catches for 53 yards. And the stat line at first doesn't blow you away. He almost had that touchdown. It's called back for a penalty. But a couple of really important plays, and it felt like he fit back into the offense seamlessly and had a big play on 3rd down, and what I thought was one of the elite celebrations of the season, where he popped up after the catch, pointed at the 2 guys that were in coverage against him, and then pointed for a 1st down. The swagger was there from Dalton Kincaid. He doesn't talk a lot, but he's got a little swag to his game. Big game for the Utah boys, Dalton Kincaid, and then Cole Bishop stepping in for the injured Taylor Rapp.
Yeah, I can't remember if that was a 26 or a 29-yard gain, but big 3rd down play. Allen trusted him down the field, and I was a little bit worried there's going to be a taunting penalty after that one with the way he pointed at them both and then signaled the 1st down. But you do like to see a little bit of fire in the guy, and he was open, and man, that was a phantom penalty call against against David Edwards on that play. It looked like one illegal hands to the face by the defense, but there was no holding on that play unless it happened well before the replay was shown by CBS. Allen made a great play. Kincaid made a great play. The game should have been over at that point, but that penalty obviously backed the Bills up, caused them to settle for a field goal, and made things very interesting. But Kincaid, a huge game back in his return, which you're excited to see that, because as good as Dawson Knox has been, who he was wide open on one play today where Allen threw it to the other side of the field
He was
for a
open in the middle
game.
of the field, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are a few opportunities there for him to have a big grab or two as well, but he stepped up. The tight ends are playing well given the circumstances. We've seen Quentin Morris when he's been healthy and out there at times make plays. Even Zach Davidson has been elevated, but you want to have your number one guy back, that being Dalton Kincaid. And today he showed why, creating the separation down the field, making big plays when the Bills needed it most.
If you're watching on YouTube, like I said, hit that like button, subscribe. You can become a Shout Buffalo Bills insider. We had a great Zoom session on Friday night with all of our insiders for an hour, a little happy hour. Just talk Bills, talk life, whatever you want to talk. And you could get that every once in a while if you're a Shout insider. 716-528-6727. It's $3.99 a month, 2-week free trial when you sign up. The Shout text line is brought to you by Carrie C. Byer, attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litro, located at 237 Main Street in Buffalo, New York. If you or somebody you know is seriously injured, give them a call, 716-852-1234, or check out litrolaw.com. All right, let's get back to the injury situation on the defensive side of the ball, because it is vast. And I mean, you're going to have some time to get healthy. Dorian Williams goes out early in this game. Then Matt Milano goes out early in this game. Whenever Balin Spector was in the game, it wasn't good. He's coming off of injured reserve, and you probably got to figure, how hard could that be for a depth player? First of all, you don't play every down. You're not an every rep in practice kind of guy. Then you get thrown out there several times this season in big spots against big games. I'm not surprised that he was just out of position, spinning himself around on the big jumbo tight end touchdown, completely out of position. And then in the secondary, Cole Bishop leaves with cramps later in the game. The Bills have to kind of keep spinning things. Kyer Elam gets the start for Rasul Douglas. Jump in wherever you want, Ryan. There's a lot to talk about in this back seven.
Yeah, before we talk about the injuries themselves, I do want to say that early in the game, Matt, it did look like they were faster on the back end than they've looked at all this season, which, you talk about Elam's speed, what Cam Lewis brings in the role that he was playing, and Cole Bishop, too, is a highly athletic player, so I kind of liked what I saw in terms of the athleticism and speed, but the injuries are starting to bite the Bills here a little bit now. As we already mentioned, they were without their two starting safeties entering this game. Hamlin, I believe it was ribs and back, if I remember correctly. Rapp is dealing with the neck and shoulder type of deal. And then you lose Bishop to cramping, at least, which is a good sign if that's all it is in terms of the long-term status of it. But you need to definitely get healthier on that back. And I know that these last few weeks, you're going against the Patriots twice, the Jets once. Aaron Rodgers actually came alive in that second half today. So Drake May is going to try to throw on this team. They need to be healthy on the back end and get healthier there. But that's a concern. You talk about Matt Milano coming back, just a few weeks ago, and now it's a groin injury for him. Those can be tricky. You hope that Dorian Williams, because he did come back in late, is going to be healthy enough to go if Milano has to miss some time. So at least you have that familiarity of those two linebackers between him and Terrell Bernard out there. But it was very tough watching Balin Spector, not just on the play that you mentioned. There was a pass to Gibbs where he kind of whiffed on the tackle and had to run back and try to make a play out of position a bit. And, like you said, this was a guy that just came off the IR, doesn't get a lot of reps in practice. I can't fault him there, but that's certainly a concern. And then we got to wait and see about Spencer Brown, too, with that neck injury. Because he has been so key to this offensive line and how great he has played. You hope that it's nothing serious and that O-line stays intact.
I want to get to James Cook here in a minute, but before we do, a couple of Josh Allen stats to read off here. He's the first player in NFL history to record multiple passing touchdowns, multiple rushing touchdowns, 350-plus passing yards, 60-plus rushing yards in a single game, including playoffs. Is the first player in NFL history with at least 2 touchdown passes and 2 rushing touchdowns in consecutive games, and the first player all time with 3 such games in a season. He also tied Patrick Mahomes with 74 wins for the second most regular season wins by a quarterback in the first 7 seasons in NFL history. And I think, if my math is correct, If he wins one of the next 3, he'll pass him. We're talking about, we could have a side conversation here before we get to Cook. We're talking about now perhaps arguably the greatest single talent that's ever come into the NFL. And I know at first, you sit back in your chair, that maybe that's a little bit of a hyperbolic statement, but I don't think so. The way that he plays the game, the way that defenses have to plan to try to stop him, there's never been anybody like him. If you ask him to just stay in the pocket and operate as a passer for an entire game, he can shred you. If you ask him to be a runner, like full runner, just run all over you all game long, he can shred you. It's a guy that has evolved into this perfect mix of chaos and composure that I just don't think that we've ever seen in the NFL before. I'm willing to say at the end of the season, no matter how it ends, whether or not he wins MVP or not, he's a Hall of Famer right now, as one of our commenters say. He's just one of the best players that's ever entered the NFL. And we're talking about a guy that's probably halfway done, maybe if not even halfway done.
Yeah, just a special player. I agree with you. I think he's already on that MVP trajectory. You could make the case from at the end of this year, especially if he wins the MVP award. That's a criteria they look at. You look at the way that he was a finalist, had a first place vote last year, was second place a few years ago in the voting. He's been consistently a very good player, but he's taken his game to another level this season, and it's amazing to watch as a media member. If you're a Bills fan, you remember that drought, and a guy like this coming in makes it all worth it, because he is exceptional to watch. He can hurt you with his arm and his legs, and you see some of the things he does. The touchdown that didn't count, where he just kind of tossed it up, a two-hand pass type of throw. The one to Khalil Shakir, and he's a very, very special player. The Bills are always going to be in the race for, or a contender in this league, as long as they have a healthy Josh Allen. And you hope that one of these years they put it all together, the defense steps up enough. But with Allen playing the way that he is, you saw how he almost came back last week against the Rams, how he was able to hold off the Lions today. That's just and then beating the Chiefs by 9 a few weeks ago too. Just a special player that rises to the occasion when he's playing against the best of the best.
This is just the first time in team history, and that's crazy on a Bills team that had Thurman Thomas and Kenneth Davis back in the Super Bowl era, where one Bills running back had a 100-yard rushing game and a different Bills running back had a 100-yard receiving game. Cook and Ty Johnson in this game, and James Cook tallied 2 rushing touchdowns today, improving his season total to 13. Right, he had, what was it, 4 coming into the season total for his career, if I'm remembering correctly. I have to look it up. He's now tied for the 3rd most rushing touchdowns in a single season all time by a Bill. Only O.J. Simpson with 16 in 1975 and Josh Allen with 15 in 2023 have run for more. Cook was sensational today, and obviously it's the 41-yard rushing touchdown where we can kind of start, but it was just like moving the chains, the 3 or 4 or 5-yard runs that keep a drive going, putting the Bills in advantageous 2nd and 3rd downs. I thought he was really good today. He didn't have to run a ton. He ends up with 14 carries, 105 yards, 7.5 on the ground per rush. Ray Davis, 7 for 15. He was really a bowling ball in this game. Reminded me of Josh Jacobs. I talked about that on Buffalo Kickoff Live this morning. That's what it felt like for Josh Jacobs last week. This is what this Detroit defense does. But James Cook found a way with his style to really impact the game as a runner.
Yeah, love the way they ran him too. It wasn't just up the gut. They were getting him to the outside, letting him use his speed. His vision was great though too. He was very patient, waited for things to open up. So even on the plays that he wasn't breaking for touchdowns or long runs, he was still picking up good chunks of yards, putting the Bills into manageable situations or simply moving the chains. That touchdown run though, to start the second half, that was a great drive by the Bills in general. He takes it the distance, 41 yards. Not only does he score the touchdown, he keeps his balance as the defender grabbed him by one of his dreads. And it looked like it was going to pull him backwards and be how he gets tackled. He keeps the balance, finds a way into the end zone. Outstanding run. The touchdowns are there this season, which, last year the opportunities, it just didn't go his way. This year he's finding a way to get into the end zone untouched for one. Actually, for both, the long touchdown minus the dread pull. And then the one where the defense was just kind of waiting for Josh Allen to do something. He hands it off, and he literally just walks in untouched. So the touchdowns were a little bit on the easier side for him, but some of those runs were not, and he did a great job of getting plus yards and helping the Bills continue to put together long drives against this Lions team.
A couple of people mentioning Dawson Knox had himself a couple big grabs today.
Yeah.
The one was super timely, super important, secures the catch. Josh Allen goes for 67.6 completion percentage in this game, 362 yards passing to the two passing touchdowns, and then obviously the rushing effort. Maybe we bookend this thing. I had Ed Oliver in the headline here, and you mentioned his next-gen numbers at the top of the show here. This is a massive game. Like, I don't think we can really downplay how important this performance is against this specific offensive line. I mean, this is an offensive line that was shutting down defensive lines, specifically on the interior. I mean, that's in a lot of ways the strength of their team. I mean, you think about their center, Frank Ragnow, one of the best in the league. They got their left tackle back in Taylor Decker in this game, Penei Sewell on the other side. But every single time that Ed Oliver wanted to really impact the quarterback today, he did it at a high level. And now we're looking out into, 3 games against bad offensive lines to continue the momentum here, supercharge things for the playoff run. I think Ed Oliver getting pissed off on December 15th is a great sign for what this is going to look like in January when teams are trying to stop you with really good offensive lines, and it just isn't good enough. If he stays healthy, I think this could be a really great run and maybe even reshape. Somebody mentions the legacy in here, reshape how people think about Ed Oliver's tenure in Buffalo.
You took the words out of my mouth. We're always on the same page. He dominated against an outstanding offensive line today, Matt, and now you go against the Patriots twice and the Jets once, arguably 2 of the 5 worst offensive lines in this league. There's potential for him to feast in those games. And if he can build off of today and end the regular season on such a high note, he's going to feel really good going into the playoffs. The D line is going to be playing with a lot of confidence going into the playoffs. And that obviously is going to help the linebacker position, the D, the defensive backs at cornerback and safety as well. This was one of Ed Oliver's greatest games. I'd have to really sit down and look at all of them. Obviously, had 9.5 sacks last year. He put together some great games there, but he was wreaking havoc all game long on Jared Goff and that Lions offensive line. And in a potential Super Bowl preview, you can't ask for much more than that.
I'll read this one here. Greg Rousseau versus Penei Sewell today was a big matchup. NFL Next Gen Stats says Greg Rousseau has generated team-high 44 pressures this season, 19 more than the next closest Bill, and tied for the 21st most in the NFL. He was held without a pressure on 25 pass rushes in Week 14, his first game without one since Week 2, 2023. Let's see here. Rousseau aligned as a left edge on 63% of his defensive snaps this season. Okay. So I thought this was a stat about what he did against Penei Sewell in this game, but this was a preview stat, so that's my bad. But from a pressure perspective in this game, you saw Ed Oliver consistently in the backfield, Rousseau as well, moving Goff off of his line. Ryan, I thought Jared Goff, sneaky, we talked about him earlier in the game where he had this really great statistical performance. I thought Goff off structure out of the pocket was about as good as I've ever seen him because I thought the Bills were really moving him off of his mark consistently throughout the game.
He had the first touchdown throw. It wasn't a spectacular throw, but he lured the defense up just enough where it looked like he was going to run. He finds a wide open Tim Patrick. He takes it in for their first score of the game. He was rolling out, moving well, keeping plays alive at times, and then hitting open players. So he was phenomenal. And, going back to some of these comments from Lions fans in the chat, that's not to take anything away from Goff. He was outstanding today. All we were saying was Allen was the better quarterback of the two, but Goff really showed me something today where I felt like he was the weak link of this team. He didn't look like that today, the way that he was moving the ball, the way that he was finding players in stride, hitting them for huge chunk yards down the field. He was outstanding. And as long as they have Goff and that offense, Ben Johnson's offense running the way that it is, they're going to be in it to the very end in that NFC conference.
Oh, man, it's going to be an exciting week here as we prep for Week 16. So many important matchups next week in the AFC. The Bills fans are going to have to pay attention to. It is the Bills at home again against the New England Patriots, who are sitting there at 3-11. And man, I know that Robert Kraft reportedly is putting his belief in Jared Mayo, but man, if they make a change at the end of the season, it wouldn't surprise me. But you look around the AFC next week, there are some really important games. I mean, the Miami Dolphins lost to the Houston Texans. Are they officially eliminated from the playoffs, or is there still an outside chance at 6-8?
I don't think they've been officially. I'd have to look. I don't think they were officially eliminated yet, but man, it's hard for me to envision them sneaking in. I guess anything is possible with that last spot, but this was another game where the Dolphins just failed to win against a contending team in the AFC. You know, the Texans they had the Bills number. They beat the Bills this year. Don't get me wrong. The Texans have not been great. That was a game where I felt like the Dolphins could have won that game, and Tua with a bad interception at the end once again, and he had a bad one after a turnover that the Dolphins had created too. Just too many mistakes by this Dolphins team, despite all the talent that they have. It doesn't look like it's in the cards for them to necessarily make the playoffs this year.
Broncos, Chargers, Texans, Chiefs, Steelers, Ravens, Titans, Colts, Browns, Bengals next week. And those are all big. A couple of them are Saturday games, the 21st. That is one on Thursday. And then you got a couple there, like I mentioned, on Sunday, along with the Bills against the Patriots. So we'll get into all of that. It's going to be huge. Ryan, let everybody know. I'll give you the final thought. Why not?
Yeah, final thought. Had a great time today on the Insider text line. Was chatting with Bills fans all game long. If you haven't signed up yet, get on that. We'll do more live Zooms here down the tail end of the season. We'll have you with all the PFF grades tomorrow. Be on the lookout for multiple podcasts this week. 3 big questions on the horizon. After a huge win, we'll have our staple show on Wednesday, a preview show as well. So stick with us. A lot of shout content coming your way.
3,500 we maxed out at across all 3 platforms. Thank you so much for the live viewership. If you're watching on the audio side afterwards or video side, thank you so much. Hit that like and subscribe on YouTube, and then leave us a review and a rating if you're listening on audio. We're brought to you by Tops Friendly Markets. 'Tis the season to save on groceries and all your holiday gifts. Christmas bonus is underway at Tops. Shop at Tops and save $10 at all your other favorite stores and restaurants. With over 25 gift cards to choose from, there's something for everyone on your list. And don't forget to treat yourself to some extra savings too. Save on great gifts like toys and games from GameStop or Toys R Us at Macy's, things for your home from Lowe's, that new big screen TV you want from Best Buy, and so much more just by shopping at Tops. Be Santa's biggest little helper with Christmas bonus from Tops. I got you a little Christmas present, Ryan Talbot. Can't wait to give it to you. Are you coming to the Patriots game? Is that your next game?
Jets game. Jets game.
I'll give it to you then. Until then.
Can't wait.
Take care, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.